Welcome, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces and some names that I've never seen. And just love that whoever's here live is just saying this before I push record. Thank you for being here and listening, and um, so many people interested in this work. So, what I'm sharing here today, I always get to think about what would be said in a one-time presentation, just one session that we get to say together, being that there's so much work that goes on that's kind of an ongoing, or where you get a chance to share multiple times or whatever. And I thought of three things, three important things. So I have some notes and I'll be looking at those a little bit. Um, but what I want to share around this issue of that looks so ongoing and persistent and difficult with eating compulsion, really, is, I suppose, in the end, that it's possible to use it as like something of incredible value. It looks so hateful and like something we never want to have. And I just want to get rid of this. And how do I get rid of this? I went to so many things, Overeaters Anonymous, other 12-step programs, places where I learned a tremendous amount of things. Um, asked um, any kind of workshop that you can imagine, uh, other ways of eating, like studying those, getting books, and therapy group. I'm actually very glad I wound up in a therapy group because it was so incredibly valuable. Um, I look at my trajectory of eating and kind of how that all looked to me, and it felt like it was so maybe I was so young and immature, and but so, failing in what I thought I should or wanted to be doing. That is actually, now I think of that as a very good thing. But so this problem certainly shows up different, differently for every single person in a unique way. And what works for people will change and, get modified and look different over time, and depending on where you are in your life and what's happening, of course. What I really want to share about is, what is that, like what we're students of. I'm sure one of the reasons you're here is, what is it that's the drive to consume in the first place, the drive to do the thing, the drive to what winds up being off balance eating for us or for me. But that drive, even if it doesn't look like eating, is very similar for everyone. There's just like I have this urge and I've got to get out of here. I need to go to this other place. And there are many things you can choose from to do that. Escape, or suppress the current moment in time, the current situation. And in this case, something to do with food. So I just see that escape or movement or kind of a rush into something else looks very different. Looks like gambling for somebody, looks like drinking alcohol for somebody, smoking the cigarette for somebody for a moment. And in this case, it's looks like eating, moving towards food, doing this behavior of eating, which is a really interesting behavior all in itself. And you just think about it, how strange it is. I don't know, just that you're putting food in here, like in one little part of your body, um, same place that you communicate and near the brain and all this. And then it goes into your body and kind of disappears. And you have feelings and sensations around it, affects your body. Um, but from that point forward, you're not in charge of how it's digesting or anything that it's doing at all. But it's a very interesting dynamic, and it's all creatures kind of take in something, taking in energy from life, and that something's going on with that, which is a very appealing and built to be pleasurable. And so we're just working with that, and like, um, what is it when it's off balance? Like really calling it just off balance, like you're tipping. Whoa, uh, things aren't working so well. It just doesn't feel like solid, being able to just walk solidly and clearly down the road. It's possible to achieve eating peace, though, like to have balance. Let's call it balance. Um, so I definitely wanted to share some of how that has looked to me and what's happened for me today. I like to say, I was talking with a sister of mine not long ago. She was actually reading the new little Food Won't Fix It ebook that I just finished not too long ago. And she's not a person that has had any compulsion with food and eating. She's changed some things about food and eating based on having cancer. So she felt afraid about some things with food or wanted to explore that, but not terribly. She wasn't filled with anxiety, but it was interesting to hear her take on just changing the actual way food looked and like what was going on with her and experimenting with that and doing work with that. But I had her read the draft of this ebook. And in there, I say I'm a regular person. And she was teasing me. She was like, "What? You're not a regular person." And yeah, sisters do. Um, but we had a little conversation about it. And it's kind of like, yes, there is nothing special about me that no one here wouldn't also have. It's just maybe the circumstances. I had no control, no way to plan that out, no trajectory of where it was going that would lead to eating peace. It almost like retroactively looking back was going, what happened along the way that was like the gates I went through or something that really helped. It felt like they totally contributed to ending an obsessive thing. And an obsessive experience with food and eating was definitely not there when I was born. So that is like a regular person. It's not there at birth. It's something that gets developed and gets learned. It's a coping mechanism. So I will still get caught in thoughts and opinions, although it does seem like there's just the extremes of it or the strength. I don't know, or there's something about it seeming more like it's not um, a takeover situation where I'm completely identified. I go, oh wow, I'm upset about this thing, but something is looking at the upset. I love that. I think everyone's able to do that. Um, and so still have upset. People think sometimes they need to be calm all the time or have peace at all times, and that's how they're going to have peace with any kind of modality, any kind of thing they're reaching for or that looks off balance in their life, any kind of reactivity. Um, I don't think so. I don't know. I think it's very normal and very human to have things come along and have reactivity happening like, oh, what's this about? Whoa, doesn't look good. I'm afraid. Um, so that's going to be normal, but it can be where you don't have to do something that winds up hurting yourself physically in order to achieve some space between you and what you think is happening. So that's the first area that I want to talk about is that this eating compulsion We call it emotional eating too, for good reasons. Emotions. The biggest and most powerful emotion for fueling compulsive behavior, compulsive thinking, is fear. And fear shows up in all kinds of um, forms, doesn't it? Like just a little anxiety, um, nervous tension. You're just kind of tightless, restless. Something's a little not right. I don't know. It's even, you could almost even say boredom. It's got a little bit of like, yeah, this moment isn't really good enough. Needs a little something. Anyway, just to see, but fear as it grows can really bring out compulsive behavior. So I called it in the title of the webinar, lighter fuel for compulsion. Feeling unsafe is lighter fuel for compulsive behavior. So a little story. Um, when I look back and sort of the beginnings, I mean, there's different moments in time that go all the way back to like just memories around what I was thinking and believing that led to behaviors with food and eating, or thoughts about food and decisions in a way about food and eating. And they go all the way back. I can remember things, very significant things just said in the environment, like at age 7, age 8. But I didn't pull it into myself, in all ways yet. But sort of things, building blocks kind of got together over time. But this little story is, there I am in high school. So high school, of course, most of us go through some kind of puberty and it's adolescence, and we're young, very baby, training for to be baby adults. um, might be leaving home at some point. I could see that on the horizon. So it's a buildup of departure. That's sort of in the whole, this is my world. And I remember a friend of mine had a magazine called 17. Yeah, and it was like, we didn't have magazines like that at our house, and my mom totally disapproved. I don't like magazines in general, but I wanted always to see my friend's house, the magazine 17, and they would talk about what you should be eating and what people's weight was. And I don't know, I just was in there, and I remember, just thinking about that and thinking, I've got to get to that. I want to be like the girls in 17 magazine when I was probably around 17 or approaching it, 15. And I was on the gymnastics team in high school, which was a very bad gymnastics team. we, we were not like, anyone could be on the gymnastics team, which was great. Yeah. No competition, just have fun, good coach, like the coach. But we're in there, and I just think friends were also on the gymnastics team and said, come be on the gymnastics team. And I remember there's this moment, and there's mirrors, in halls and gymnastics teams and the gym that we were in. And a friend, teammate said, come over here, come over here. And hey, come over here to two of us. And we came, and she um, put her arms around each of our shoulders and then sort of pushed me into the middle and said, pointing to the first teammate, small over her head, medium over my head, large over her head. And then said something very disparaging about I'm being large, that she would always make self-effacing jokes about herself being large, and how she shouldn't be. And I just remember that moment. We're all looking, we have leotards, training clothes on, and whatever. in the mirror and thinking, oh my God, right. The best thing to be is the small one. So I'm not so bad being the not the large one, and she feels terrible being the large one. And yeah, we should both be the small one. I completely had that just purchased, that identity. It's like, oh yeah, this is the wrong thing. So shoot, I want to be small. So um, I'm starting to look more at my body, and then uh, in another mirror, also around the same time on swim team, did all the sports. Um, I'm with my good friend Sandra, and I'm looking at the mirror in the bathing suit and saying, "Yeah, this is terrible. Like, look, my hips. It's like a shelf. It's like it goes in and then it goes out. Horrible." And she made a little joke. Oh, if it's a shelf, maybe I'll set my shampoo bottle on it. And I just remember her saying that. Ha ha ha. We laughed, but there was just such a element of this isn't right. And the feeling inside was, this has got to change. This isn't okay being like this. Um, I need to crack down. I need to do something about this. Definitely in my mind, a lack of safety was presented. This is not safe in the world. This is not that great. You're in a body, and being in a body is frightening. And the meaning I'm making of this body is that it is who I am and it must change. I've really got to change this. So I was just really, in a way, staring at that all the time. If I saw it in the mirror, now, I know I had gaps in between where I was not paying attention to that at all, and that was okay. And there wasn't a full-blown eating disorder. But that came not long after I was in this atmosphere. I'm the oldest in the family, and in our family, we go to college. Everybody goes to college. You have to go to college. I don't know if there's any other alternative to go to college. It's funny, I talked to my mother now, and she said my father was wondering if I wouldn't mind having a gap year or something. And I'm like, I don't remember any of that kind of possibility. I think it was already so set in my own mind. I would have been a failure if I didn't go. Um, and anyway, they invited all the people that we'd ever grown up with, like a huge family party I was the center of attention in the summer. So I guess it would have been the summer that I was 18 and graduating from high school, ready to go off to a college, 1,000 miles away. And I just remember that dinner. There's an outside patio. My dad loved to cook, and he had cooked all this food. Many, many people, many adults my parents' age, people that had known me since I was young, people from our church, people from my school. And I just remember adult after adult asking me, so tell us about it. What are you going to major in? And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to major in. I'm so full of anxiety. I don't even know if I want to go, but that's a secret I'm not telling. And very, very, very insecure about what was going to happen next, but also like, this is what you do. You have to do this. And what do you know? For some weird reason, at that dinner, I started eating the food, which I can't even remember what the food was now at this point, but I was eating the food and eating a plate. And somebody would ask me, what are you majoring in? And can you tell us about it? And what's the college going to be like? And what dorm are you going to be in? Do you know who your roommate is? And just some of the same questions. And I would say, oh, I would sort of share things just about every single answer to those questions where I don't know. And then I would go get more food. And it was like I was just going and getting the food, going and getting more food was a break out of that conversation. Very polite, very nice. I'm the star of the party, or the whatever, when, the honored guest or something. Um, and I just kept doing that for what felt like hours until I excused myself because I was getting so incredibly full. And I excused myself and put my dishes in the kitchen. Everybody's down. There's lots of noise. There's lots of talking and social activity. And I went up the long staircase and into the upstairs bathroom where I locked the door and I said, I am going to make myself throw up. I know I've tried to do it. I've thought about it before. I'm going to make it happen this time. And it was very difficult, but I accomplished it. And then I went straight to bed. So it was my first episode with such extreme, like I would say it was a binge. I look back at that and I just remember, though, not so much the food, but all the fear about moving out, that none of which had been discussed for like 2 or 3 years, about what I really wanted to do, or not even letting myself know what I wanted to do. Yeah. So, so this quote from Pema Chodron, who later has been somebody that I absolutely have loved. Sat with her in meditation and read some of her books. But she said, no one ever tells us to stop running away from fear. The advice we usually get is to sweeten it up, smooth it over, take a pill, distract yourself, but by all means make it go away. We think that if we just meditated enough, or jogged enough, or ate perfect food, everything would be perfect. But from the point of view of someone who is awake, that's death. Seeking security or perfection, rejoicing in feeling confirmed and whole, self-contained and comfortable, is some kind of death. It doesn't have any fresh air. There's no room for something to come in and interrupt all that. We are killing the moment by controlling our experience. Now, that is a very powerful quote to me, because as I look back and see what happened, is that was still underway. I was still running away from fear, anything to get away. And then I was terrified by that binge eating episode. Like, what is going on? No one will ever know that I did that. I mean, it was completely private. There's not one person. I had no friend that I told. I said to no one except when I got to therapy. um, but I was carrying the weight of that. It was like, felt horrifying to me to be taken over like that, in a way, taken over by this impulse to eat and just be so caught in that. And, I made it 6 months at college. And then I came back and showed up on my parents' doorstep. They were completely surprised, um, and just dropped out. So I'm in a way now that when I look back at that, no surprise. So just the first thing that I think is so important is awareness of your emotions. Awareness of fear is the most important thing, just fear in all its forms. I'm afraid of something, that's whatever that is for you. It also shows up as anger sometimes. So people who've taken the eating peace experience, I'll say there's this little acronym, APE, or if you've taken any little workshops, APE. A is anger, afraid, angry, afraid, both of those together in a little pair. I really can see that anger is a form of fear. It's got a lot of power in it. It's got a lot of, it's sort of setting boundaries. Do not cross this line. Get back. That, that just that the turmoil that's set up, and there's a place for it that feels a little bit different than just sheer terror. But I still like to put them together as just awareness. I'm against something. And even if I'm not running away from it, as like in the Pima Chodron quote, it's I'm I'm seeking security and I'm demanding it. I'm got a tight grip like this. And it doesn't mean I'm in denial to say that I should just drop that. It's no, I'm looking closely, but I want to hear from the parts of me that have those emotions. For me, thank goodness, when I showed up at my parents' house and they were just like shocked. Oh, what's happening? She's here. They kind of had to face, I don't know, the fact that their young adult, baby adult child has returned home. Um, and their first order of what they thought was available was to go to therapy. And actually at the time, that was the time, it just seemed like the best thing that was offered. Get your mental health together. And I did see a few great people, but the real change, transformation, and assistance came for me in group therapy. And I'm very lucky that um, I met somebody, one of the very first jobs that I had. I got a regular job, um, and just started working, and I made a friend there. And he said, I know somebody who's training to be a therapist, and he's in this group, and a group therapy. And I went to the therapist first, and I thought I could just do it without doing group therapy. Can I just see only you? And she doesn't do that. She has people get together and connect with others. Um, but the main thing was speaking to my emotions, being aware of those things that I was so afraid of, and not trying to um, kill the moment by controlling my experience, as Pima Chodron said in her quote. So, one of the simplest ways to do that is just recognize that I am having huge feelings, and the feelings are churning and coming out of lots of thoughts. And there might be a whole collection of thoughts from the past. And we can calm the nervous system so that you can just handle all the exploding thoughts and feelings that are happening, and then actually talk to those feelings, talk to the ones who are feeling the feelings. So that's the first medicine around this is really speaking to those feelings. In the work of Byron Katie, which I discovered much later, but in some ways I think there was a lot of investigative, internal work happening, of course, in the therapy that I got to engage in. It's like I'm questioning the way I respond to other human beings in the world and all the meaning that I'm thinking of believing that leads up to this behaviors that we do that are like whatever happens, whatever the compulsion looks like. And just to trust this is all happening. If I'm weird with food or whatever I'm weird with, it's the it's a series of events that leads to that. And if I'm not even sure what they are, just look and see what I'm afraid of. What I have, where I feel anger or fear. Okay, so just calming the nervous system so that fear can run, anger can run, and I can allow it to be what it is. Like, just go ahead and speak, actually come out. Um, yeah, for some reason I have this, I've had this before. There's in The Wizard of Oz, Glinda the Good Witch is the Munchkins, the house has landed on the Wicked Witch of the East and it turned west and killed her or whatever. And all these little Munchkins are going away, but she sings this little song, come out, wherever you are, to the Munchkins. Well, I like saying, come out, wherever you are, to the fear and the anger, to the disruption. And there's something appealing later, it really is very appealing to bump into the work because it's the first step in Byron Katie's form of self-inquiry is let the feelings be there. See what they have to say. Write them down, but let them talk and let them be there. And we can calm the nervous system so that it doesn't feel like we're just completely taken over by fear and anger, which I know is incredibly uncomfortable. Yeah, I don't know. I still would feel like I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to be angry. And I'm not really in charge of that. Um, Too late, fear and anger presents itself and uh, it has reasons. It's reasons. All right, so just think getting a little space, letting it talk, letting these things talk and be there, allowing them, not running away from them, can be incredibly relieving, just transformative, relieving, and having somebody listen to what you feel so afraid of and so angry about. Okay, so that's one. Just sort of relaxing enough in the nervous systems to let yourself or find a way to allow fear and anger to be expressed. And it doesn't mean you need to do it it needs to be painful for other people or anything like that. Just talk to them. Talk to these parts of ourselves that are so upset. Boy, if I had had somebody saying, do you think you really don't, how are you feeling about going to college? It would have been, that would have been different. I didn't even, and my parents are amazing. They're very supportive. They were very supportive people. My father's been gone a long time, died of cancer a long time ago, but um, they would have done anything, to help me feel navigate and they wanted me to feel okay, but they also had their ideas about what success was. And yeah, so I really see them as doing the absolute best they can. Um, okay, so letting those talk, calming the nervous system enough, so letting those things talk, and maybe the nervous system just goes, but you're safe enough to express it. All right. Second area of no, a belief, a way of seeing that doesn't seem to work so well, that actually keeps compulsion in its place, self-criticism. So it looks to me like this really always leads to like kind of contraction. What is it? If you contract, get small, protective, the opposite of transformation. It's really easy to get into. When I have this phrase called phrase, practice, whatever, called drop the knife. But it's from the Hafiz poem. So here's the poem. Once a young woman said to me, Hafiz, what is the sign of someone who knows God? I became very quiet and looked deep into her eyes and replied, My dear, they have dropped the knife. Someone who knows God has dropped the cruel knife that most so often use upon their tender self and others. So, a little story. You might have heard this before if you've ever attended anything. I sometimes share this story because it was really one of those milestone moments, transformative moments like, oh, I get something here. So I went to many, many 12-step meetings. I loved 12-step meetings when I first went to them. Discovered them when I dropped out of college and came back, and I was quite young, and I saw an advertisement like on TV or something, and it was for Overeaters Anonymous. I'm like, oh my God. And I saw a phone number, and I had the courage to call the phone number. And I remember I barely could say a word, and this person was just talking and telling me her whole story and saying, "Oh, I'm just, in my just doing laundry and stuff." And it was just there's so much comfort and ease in how she spoke. And I found that to be the case from the first meeting I ever went to. I'm like, they can just talk about whatever they're saying on the inside. Speaking of that first step of talking about what you feel, your anger, your fear, whatever it is. I was just shocked because we just didn't do that in my family. Like there's something in me is what you're supposed to like suppress your disrupted feelings. Like don't tell anybody about them. Nobody wants to hear them. So this was the opposite. And I really had found so much like amazement and then relief and like connection by sitting in those meetings. And I love that they exist because it's, they're just that it's free and people offer it all over the world. So I started, there weren't very many Overeaters Anonymous meetings at the time. And so I went to AA meetings, and I was in a meeting, and it was a big one where there was probably, I don't know, there's many people, between 50 and 100 people probably, and some rows, like circular rows. So somebody had spoken up in the front, told their story, always pretty darn inspiring. And then there was like half circles that went around, and another half circle, another like layers, maybe 5 deep, like an audience, but half circles. And I was in about the third row back, and I decided when it was time to open up and share, I was having the most miserable time. I had had some period of kind of, it seemed like I was can control the food, control things and uh, relax. But I was in a period of lots of binge eating, and then I'd starve myself and kind of very flip-flopping and felt really, why did I drop out of college? And I had just a lot of weight on my shoulders about what a big failure I was and how horrible I was, and how much thinking I had. And so there I am. And I decided to share because I felt quite desperate and isolated. And I shared and I cried, and I felt like I couldn't even look up really well. And I just, even to me, it was still to start to cry with people listening was still something that I thought of as embarrassing or difficult or overwhelming. Um, it's definitely uncontrollable to have feelings, big feelings, but I felt very despairing. And I was talking about all my failures and what wasn't working, and that I couldn't get this. And then I was finished speaking, and a heart beating, face red, kind of like now I could kind of come down from all that nervous tension, armpits sweating, and somebody else started to speak. I think it's off of me, but I felt like I needed to, I just had to break out of the suffering. And I knew one thing that helped is talking. And I see this movement in the row, of people moving. And I kind of look out to my left, and I see it again. I see it, and people are passing something from one lap to the next, to the next, to the next. And then there's pointing. And finally, it's evident with sign language that this is a little piece of paper all folded up in a tight little square, and it's for me. And so I slowly open it, in the meeting. And it's a beautiful ballpoint pen, a little like maybe 3 inch by 2 inch piece of notebook paper written in ballpoint pen, blue, very flowery, cursive writing. And the person said something like, "You are engaging in negative grandiosity." You know, and I just they went on to say some very kind things, and I actually could take that in without attacking myself. Um, Later on, maybe not too many, a few years later, one of the things that I encountered, I'd take anything, was A Course in Miracles. And I was in a group um, for a couple years, and went through the whole. They have it was a day by day process of different thoughts and practices for a whole year. But they have a lovely saying in the Course in Miracles: whenever you become defensive about anything, know that you have identified with an illusion. An illusion. Um, and I could see that I was completely identified with this illusion. Like, what's an illusion? It's something you see that actually isn't real, you know. But this was negative grandiosity, like so low self-esteem. So I looked up the definition of grandiosity, like delusion. It's a form of delusion, being caught in, this illusion. And mine, what they'll say about delusion and grandiosity is that, somebody's just got a gigantic ego and wanting to boss everyone around and very narcissistic and all this. But this is the opposite of that, but still grandiose. So a type of delusion characterized, and I switched to negative, by a deflated sense of self-importance, not inflated. Powerlessness, involving beliefs of being unknown, impoverished, having special, horrible abilities as somebody who is rejected or worthy of rejection. And I was like, yeah, I was kind of doing that. Like, just that it would be such a huge attack, that knife, I'd be holding the knife. And I just see that as something I notice in the human mind, is like, that's how we're going to solve this problem. Or I'm going to attack. Like, if I just humans do it with war, right? I'm going to go to war, and then I'll be safe, and then I'll win, and then I'll be comfortable. But we're doing it to ourselves. So that was a moment, whoever that was, that wrote me that note. I had that in my wallet for probably like 20 years. And then I do not know, one day it was not in my wallet anymore, their little note. But so that is a second principle of eating peace. I just call it drop the knife. And some of it's just awareness. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, but awareness of defense and attack coming in, attack thoughts. So first one was calming in the nervous system. And it'd be okay to be angry and afraid, and then dropping that knife. And then one more that I'll share with you. And that is, the way I put it was, so what's available for us for changing our eating patterns if we are not doing it with force and rules and will and compliance or rebellion or discipline? And like, what is it if we could truly be free from compulsion without believing we need more I just need more discipline. How many times I've heard people say, I just need some more discipline. Um, Probably you all know that that's not quite, the thing that is needed. But um, I was later on, um, maybe maybe 5 years later, after the great dropout, I'm back in a college program, attempting to re-enter then into that same college that I dropped out of. And I have the amazing opportunity of I'm in Florence, Italy, studying with people. Like that'll do it. I'll go to Florence, Italy. I'll do that program, and that'll help me kind of, I'll study there, and then I can return to college, and I'll just be like a normal person back in college. It's amazing. So I remember one of my grandparents paid for my trip, and when I just that was great. This is going to help me. I'm going to be in Florence, Italy. Amazing, amazing. But I'm over there, and I'm like I need to keep it together. I need to make sure I don't go off the rails. I need to weigh and measure all my food. Not that sometimes that works very beautifully for people and brings them a lot of peace. So no saying what's right or wrong for you, but I had like little scales and cups and measurements and stuff in Florence, Italy. And I I decided to actually join with the other students, and I had gotten some kind of vegetable from the market. I feel like I remember it was like cabbage. Okay, that's allowed. This is allowed. This is not allowed. This is not allowed. Lots of stuff not allowed. And I remember I measured however many ounces of cheese I was allowed, and I measured those and melted it on top of this cabbage. I mean, you can imagine you see somebody with their vegetable and with melted cheese on it. And somebody said in the group, "What are you eating? My God." Kind of like that. And I was like, I'm never going to eat with these people again. I can't eat with other people. So I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. I can't eat with people if I'm eating and wanting to overeat and I can't eat with them if I'm not either. So I'm just solo, no problem going solo. Won't be hanging out with them anymore. Didn't I kind of had been very isolated anyway on the program, but I just walked everywhere by myself. They would take the bus or take a group cab or something, and I just traveled by myself in between, um, and did everything alone. And I just was managing every move and protecting myself through kind of dictatorship, just control. I'm chuckling, but it's wasn't funny feeling. If anybody's, it's like diet, I guess. It felt like absolute management, and it really wasn't freedom. That's for sure. So what I love is and there's a lot of fear in it, a lot of fear in that kind of management and control. I can't go off of this because it has to be like this. It's my only remedy for the complete insanity. And again, I was not letting any of the parts that were churning underneath the surface actually be there and live. And um, later on, we do this in the eating peace experience. I named like the green light eater and the red light eater. Some of you might have heard that if you've done anything with me. Red light eater and green light eater. Green light eater is the one who's just like, go for it, eat, do everything, let it out. Go here, do whatever you want. All controls are, we're taking them all off. Red light eater is the one who's like, no, all controls are on. We're gonna make sure you're got everything under control. You are not going to let that out. You need to keep it suppressed. And both of them are very stressful, very painful. And it's chaotic, all or nothing. But later on, learning internal family systems, I see they're both trying to protect. They're both trying to protect, and there's fear again coming alive. It's like the one rushing in to eat food. I love how they call that in internal family systems the firefighter. Just imagine a person running in with a giant hose going on this fire. Eat the food, eat the food. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm sweetening it up. I'm sweetening up the moment. I'm escaping the moment. And and the other one, like that controller, it's just doing that with hypercriticism. So again, allowing parts to speak. And I love this question. What would kindness eat? What would love do? What would love do in this situation? So a remedy for fear, it's not courage, but love. Although courage sometimes shows up in the middle of that, like is what's necessary. But love. So later on, did many retreats with a teacher called Adyashanti, and I love that he said this. So ask yourself, what would love do? Not your idea of love, which for most people is quite distorted, but the universal reality of love. This is not as complicated as people make it out to be. So don't refer to your ideas about love, but rather evoke the reality of love by simply asking the question, what would love do? This question is a deep inquiry, something to really sit with and allow to grow within yourself. You must get underneath your old ideas of what love is and how it moves in the world. Sit in the silence of the question. Don't jump to quick answers. And remember that love is not sentimental or indulgent. It is fearless, wise, and true, and extremely healing. Love is absolute intimacy and truth in action. I am liking asking myself, what would love do with lots of things that are happening in the world right now? With kind of the climate looks like so I know from personal experience that when I have just sat with being a listener to whatever looks very terrified and frightened, angry inside, and letting the feeling be there, like almost welcoming it, shocking, 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 but letting it be there, allowing it, that's something, if I just stay and stay with it, sometimes something happens. Like um, a few years ago, I was very worried about my adult oldest child, very depressed, waking up in the middle of the night. He was very depressed. I was waking up in the middle of the night, worried about him. He was lived very far away. Um, and I just, in the middle of the night, I was like, right, remember, just be with this feeling. Instead of like, oh God, I gotta stop being anxious. There's nothing I can do. As an adult, 30 years old person, like, or whatever like that. No, no, no attacking of the self, no doing it wrong. Like I'm just a mother feeling this. And I felt like felt in the area in my diaphragm, right between the rib cage. And I was just like, just go, welcome. You are welcome. You are welcome. And the next thing I knew, I was sobbing my eyes out. Just sobbing in the middle of the night. And I cried and cried and cried about, heartbroken about my kid suffering. Looked like some suffering sometimes some of the same ways I had. And also having their own unique life. And then something about that, Like I could go to sleep, however long that was. I could go to sleep and something shifted. It's like, oh, I'm heartbroken. And I can be quite, wait, is it true? Is it true this is a big disaster for my kid or whatever it was? This is terrible. What if this is, what if this is okay that this is happening? What if it's all right? I see now how amazing it is that I had it looked so extreme with food and eating because it changed the course of my life in a good way. So allowing all the parts to speak. So calm the nervous system, like, just deep breaths, letting all the parts of ourselves be there. Lots of stuff can be going on at once in the human mind. That's very complex. Drop the knife and letting those feelings be there, even just allowing them, welcoming them. What would kindness do? And I think everybody's got the capacity for all those things. If you were taking care of a little 6-year-old child that was very distraught, you would know how to work with that person, that age, that level. Just trust that you could do that. It has to be something within yourself that is in here. Yeah, like that I've got to find it out there somewhere. It's out there. It's out there. I just haven't found it yet. What kind of keeps you scampering and racing after, and just see this has to be something that lives within us, even if we don't even know exactly what it is. But there's some kind of stable thing in here that is aware and that knows what needs to happen with even food and eating, what needs to be revealed so that all this doesn't happen it's a series of events, and then eating is happening at the end of it. And you start seeing what the pattern is that leads to that end event. And that's actually all that's needed. So I just had these certain uh, blocks and times that through the different things I learned along the way where it was okay. Um, yeah. So these are some of the principles, some of the key things. I'm trying to keep it very simple and not like it doesn't require a lot of intellect or a lot of, brilliant thinking or anything. Just kind of going for the what would love do? What would kindness eat? I know that for me, kindness, it did not feel kind to be eating everything in sight or like saying, I'm gonna eat whatever I want. And also didn't feel kind to restrict. But there was something very, one thing I will mention in Eating Peace Experiences, I took a parenting class a long time ago when my kids were really little and was very surprised to find they showed this graph, and it was like parents who are very, very low level of, there was a graph of from strictness, like discipline, down to absolutely none, no discipline, no strictness. And then the other bar was love to no love, like neglect. And so if you had very low discipline, like just sort of, you could call it marshmallow parenting. Sometimes they call it that, but just like you can do whatever you want. It was kind of neglectful, unfortunately. I mean, I think I was sort of leaned like that a little bit. I wanted to not be so, I didn't want, I was going the opposite of control as I felt I had been controlled. So I was hands off and I don't know. Anyway, I just noticed that within myself at the time. I remember thinking that. So very high level of discipline, but low love, you're going to look like a military, you know, the kids that are lined up in the Sound of Music that have to, go like this and clean their room. But if you have a high level of love and low discipline, that's sort of, they know they're loved, but there's not much guidance. And when it bumps up against hard things, there's sort of a pullback. But in any case, just to make it brief, it's like what works best in parenting? High discipline and high love. And I think we're kind of doing that with ourselves, with our compulsions and our thoughts. Sort of really like catching them, letting them be there and speak, and dropping the knife, allowing, but also, we're uh, giving up all the punishment and sin, guilt, punishment cycle, and just then shame, so that you kind of this can have both, supported. So that's what I wanted to share today. And then I wanted to share a little bit. So any questions about anything that's come up in this part of the presentation, and then I'll share little bit about eating peace experience for anybody who wants to know about it. Yeah, Milda.
Hello.
Hello.
Um, I have the question in regards of allowing the parts to be and to speak.
Yes.
Uh, there is a lot of also information and talking about, getting from head to the feeling to the body. Do you think it's relatable to
Ah,
the allowance? Because in the head we can get stuck. So
yeah,
it's just dropping from the thoughts to the bodily sensations, like really allowing the body sensations. And
yeah.
after the nervous system is calm, then we can go back to the thinking.
Yes, I love that. That sounds it sounds very balanced. And I feel like that's happened with me if I'm not kind of like tightening up against a feeling that's coming in, kind of like, oh, I don't then everything's into sort of that suppression and tightness. But if I just say, well, where is it feeling? Where do I feel it in the body? I definitely had that experience, that part when I told you about my worrying about my child. I just went to this place in the body, just follow that. And it is very useful. It's just like letting it, letting it speak, letting it be there. Um, so I think it is a nice just feeling in the body. I love
Because
that.
as I understand, when there is enough awareness to see your thoughts and to welcome them, it goes both along, feeling and the thoughts.
Yeah.
But when there's a lot of rumination and a lot of anxiety and attacking thoughts, there's not enough space to deal with the thoughts. So that's why I'm asking, maybe go straight to the body.
Yeah, that sounds very wise. It sounds like you've got your own, there's a guidance in here that's saying, noticing that. And it's kind of like, yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes it can be like the sea, like you're out at the ocean and the top, there's a big raving storm. And if you go down underneath the water, it's actually pretty quiet under there, right?
Mm.
You just kind of go down and just feel it down inside your body. Yeah, like it's good.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, thank you so much. This is just so beneficial. I
Good.
may have missed it. I had a quick question about because like so much of this is resonating. I was trying to take notes. You mentioned an acronym called APE, and I got the A, but
Yes,
somehow I missed the P and the E.
you're right. I think I didn't ever
Oh,
get to the P and the E.
okay,
Oh, so I'm glad you got that. So P is
sure.
powerless. When you just feel like I have no power in the situation, there's nothing I can do, there's no agency, whatever you want to call it, there's no power. I'm powerless in this and just noticing all that happens there. So if I think there's absolutely nothing I can do, sometimes the process of like an addictive process or compulsive process is a way to get some power when I have no power over here. Well, at least I'll go over here. You know, eat whatever I want, kind of rebellious eating. But it's great to see just where am I sensing and feeling and perceiving I have no power at all. I have no power. And just looking, because then when that comes up, maybe we can question it. Maybe we can see if there, what else is there. Let's look at the nuances of it. What can I do? And the E is emptiness. And I just empty, boredom, like uh, vast emptiness, sometimes existential emptiness. What is the meaning of anything? But just feeling very blasé. I remember talking a long time ago. Actually, it was at the I was giving a talk at the what used to be the Institute for the Work of Byron Katie, and speaking to a whole audience of facilitators and about eating issues and working with people. And I was talking about anger and fear and powerlessness, and just talking about the emotional experience and being in touch with them. And I loved what Milda said about just getting in touch with the body so that those can come out and like have time to come out into the open and be seen. And somebody said, "Well, my main problem is I eat when I'm bored." And I thought, right, I didn't really. There was all like that it's emotions and heavy emotions and intense, but what about just simple like, eh, this is just kind of not good enough right now. I think I just want to eat some food and have some fun and entertainment. Anyway, so then I was like E, and it started to look like those APE, those umbrellas that kind of fit quite a bit of the moments when we feel that a pull towards food or framework. So emptiness. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. You're welcome. Great question. Glad you came back to that. You guys are following. It's great. All right. Um, any other questions? So with the eating peace experience, um, boy, it's had so many different iterations. It's going to be different every single time I do. I finally realized that, along the way. There's no way you can kind of keep the thing the same. There's going to be different people, and also how something's presented just moves and morphs and gets, oh, we need more time for this. And this time, the thing that's different, that I've never done before, is instead of making videos that people will watch and then you come and gather together and have Q&A, we're just going to do the thing together, kind of like today. Like I might talk about the the idea and people will share, and you'll just get a chance to sort of speak to that idea or that thing brought forward, or be curious about it, and just become aware, and we'll just do it together, and let the questions come up right in the moment when they appear, you know. So you're not just hanging out watching me on video by yourself. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes that can be good, but um, I think it's just the sense of doing it together. For me, it really, I know it's a journey where you're walking, when you're hiking with the group up a mountain, well, you've got to walk yourself and you've got your little backpack and your own water bottle and all that stuff. But um, it is amazing to be with the other people. It puts a completely different feel on the journey, especially if you're near someplace like you're pretty far away from, you're just not alone out in the wilderness. Um, yeah, just being really connected with others and hearing from others, learned so much. I just got so much out of that, my own group therapy way back. That changed my behavior. It changed my behaviors. It changed my perception, the way I was navigating the world, to not just have information in my head. Ooh, that's a really good piece of information. but to actually, like share it and experiencing it right with people in the moment, um, that made all the difference. So that's the way we're doing it this time. So that'll be different. So we have these set times when we're all gathered. And yeah, we'll look at all the emotions, what drives, what fuels the end point that looks like eating. And then there's things that happen after. And um, awesome, Patty. Um, and then we'll also look at like behavior change. So last year I did this behavior change training with a guy, BJ Fogg at Stanford, who wrote Tiny Habits. And that's sort of a thing that's out there, like small little adjustments, things that are just right for you, not too much. Like so many things that I did were sort of get rid of all this kind of food and, you know, um, take out all your cupboards, I don't know, eliminate all of that. Now we're going to go do this, and it's a big project. And you might feel really good at the beginning, like, whoa, I'm just this major spring cleaning. And I'm about to do this huge thing. But this is more like just one little step that's way more doable. And you don't scare yourself to death with things. So you kind of know where you might want to, what you might want to be, like just what's one little behavior that you would like to have look different. Um, And then you can kind of break it down and just see what's going on there and what happened in the first place to bring that behavior out into like what looks like the best choice your whole psyche and everything has for responding to life in this way. And then seeing what you might most need for support in that moment that would really help you because it's going to be different for different people. Um, I often have people at the very beginning, well, we'll do this. At the very beginning, you're going to like frame like one of the first things that's just sort of a behavior change is this thing Byron Katie calls a living turnaround, where you find a turnaround. And then she says, well, and how would you live it? And I used to hear her like she would do the work with people and then say, well, what's it like when go to work in the morning and get in your car and go to the market and, go to the bathroom and clean your kitchen. And what's it like when you're just being yourself, living that turnaround? And then what's it like in the presence of that person? And that is a really interesting question. Like, what is that? What is that like if I'm living differently? How do I feel? How do I feel in the body? And I will know, like what looks like I couldn't feel that way in that moment. Like what's preventing me from feeling? Let's talk to that part and that aspect of ourselves, and then we'll see how can we explore there and what can we do so that we're not setting something up that is going to be really hard to do, but it's tiny. I like the word tiny. Tiny little things. So the very first thing was what I was going to say is we just do a mind event. Like don't necessarily change something about the actual behaviors of food and eating, although that we will. But the very first thing is just having a mindset around um, the way I've liked to put it is I have what it takes to dot 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 and like to find eating peace or to eat with a balanced way, to make peace with food or, you know, relax with this condition. I have what it takes. Very different because it'll look to I don't know, it's look to me and like many parts of ourselves, I don't have what it takes. I gotta go find it somewhere. This is not uh-oh, kind of it doesn't work. I don't do it right. So just wow, I have what it takes. Even if I don't know what to do right now, I'm I'm here. Let's see. Milda says in the chat, thank you, Grace, so much. It's been so helpful. Good. So grateful to have found you on the internet some time ago. Yay. To have a chance to hear your perspectives on thinking, criticism, just change the course and gives hope. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So, well, so Friday, right at the same exact time is where we're going to start the little Eating Peace experience group, and we're going to go all the way to June, and there's 12 sessions, and they're more, they'll, like we'll be including something, just the content, we'll be talking about things that come up so frequently in this behavior and changing it and noticing and relaxing and watching things, just noticing what looks like it works. So Milda says, is Eating Peace program relatable for other compulsions? That is a very good question. I think everybody will be mainly having eating. I have sometimes thought I've done like a little self-sabotage thing occasionally, because that's what it feels like to people. Like there's just all the myriad of things that people do. And sometimes people with eating also have other things. Like I also smoked, and I also drank, and I also, um, I don't know, texted. I also had a thing of like, very young, I would have like crushes, and then I'd be like, oh, let me just think about that guy. And I don't know. So that would be my escape route. And I have all of those. And all of us seem to, everything's more relaxed now, noticing just the little things that want to move out into like gaining some escape or getting some kind of empowerment or something. So it fits, but this group will be mainly, people will be talking about when they do like the little behavior change. It'll be, I think that most people are drawn because they're going to be looking at things that they do with food. But yeah, I still think talking to all the parts of all the things that you do, all those parts of yourself, the anger and all of that is very fitting. Cindy.
Yeah, hi everyone. Cindy from Virginia. Looking forward to going through this with everyone. Maybe you're going to cover this later, but I was wondering if now is a good time to talk about the logistics. It looks
Yeah,
like there's a class or a meeting on Monday and then again on Thursday and Friday. Can you explain a little bit how all that works?
I love you asked that question. Yes. So the main course content, like when our real topic and subject, will be on Fridays. Mostly Fridays, and there's 2 Sundays, you probably noticed, where it's so, and we don't meet on a Friday because like I'm teaching a retreat once and da da da. Anyway, so it's all, but there's 12 sessions. Two of them are, so 10 of them on Fridays, two of them on Sundays, also at 10:30 Pacific time. And then, yeah, everybody who is in the Eating Peace experience will get invited to this ongoing group that's Epic, which is, I love the name Epic. Epic. It's Eating Peace Inquiry Circle. And we will just only be doing the work on those times. And they're drop in. And they have people who've in the past taken Eating Peace experience or have even been looking at other things, other compulsions sometimes. So, um, also a small group, but we just do the Work of Byron Katie. So you come on, check in and say a thought, and maybe somebody does the work, or everybody's doing kind of group inquiry. And those are drop in and Mondays at 4 p.m. Pacific or and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. And so there's been some people in that it's been going on for a couple years, and they just show up, and they have to, they've had experience in the work, and they're looking at compulsive behavior specifically. Yeah. So that's why it's called Eating Peace Inquiry Circle. Yeah. So that one's just for the work. The Friday class is more of the class. We won't be doing the work. We'll just be, covering the content. I'll be sharing and see if there's anything else. Everything will be saved, including the drop-in Eating Peace Inquiry Circle. The recordings will all be saved, and they'll all be put into this place where you can log in. And I'll make sure everybody knows how to log in. Like sometimes you have to get a password reset, but then when you get it, it's like, when you go to workwithgrace.com and there's a student icon, you just can click on it and it takes you to the login for the course. So you'll be able to see everything. So even if you don't attend Eating Peace Inquiry Circle, if you want to just listen to the inquiry, some people love to do that. Yeah, they can. Yeah. Did that answer everything? I think it did. Those are all the live things.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Jacqueline, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's fun that I'm here, and because that's not my eating piece isn't my particular topic, but I'll say a couple things. One, for anyone who's on the fence about doing work with you, I still attribute, because it's true, the 5 years of inquiry, and it's so interesting, Grace, because I'm coming out the other side of financial maelstrom and all of that, and I'm coming out well, right?
Oh,
Really well in all, and
good.
yet I prioritize spending a heck of a lot of money. I'm in Canada too, so it's like just add a zero to everything American.
I
And that's
know.
gotten higher, not lower. But anyways,
Yes.
so by chance, that's not why I'm on here, but I thought, well, I feel almost like people might not like, I'm a voyeur or whatever, but I'm voyeuring for two reasons in this case. One, you did such a great job. You had me really curious about why, so that basically your marketing had me curious. And I thought, I want to come on here. I just had a sense.
Hmm.
And even though I multitasked throughout, I picked up some absolute gems, including that drop the knife. And I love Hafiz, but I'd never heard that. And I love Hafiz because of you and one of your retreats.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember going to your retreat and walking in there and thinking, when I discovered that I had driven from northern Canada, western, but still northern, all the way to Seattle, and we were going to do one Judge Your Neighbor in a weekend,
I
in
will never
three
forget
or
you
four
saying
days.
that.
I was like, not a chance that's what I thought I was signing up for.
I know.
And it was the best thing. And in fact, now I'm regularly doing full Judge Your Neighbors once or twice a month with people where we swap and we get all the way through. So phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah, I just like could go on and on and on of the value. And yeah, just love everything you do. And um, I guess my comment, I'm just curious, there's a question, is my I'm aware that I have issues with my daughter's eating.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
I've recently, through something else I was doing, come to see that my overeating equivalent is my obsession with it's my fault. It's that
Oh,
she has challenges, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I, so that drop the knife was just so sweet.
Yeah.
And I just thought, maybe I'll come off video and make a comment about that and see
Yeah.
if you have anything you want to say, because I was thinking it's
Yeah.
almost like a
Yes.
related niche you could be serving
Yeah.
is the family and friends.
You got it. Yeah. That's a very, very powerful thing to notice. And I once did, it's probably been a couple years where I did interviews with people who they all had mostly eating issues themselves,
Right.
but they were also concerned about their offspring, whether it was their children or their grandchildren. They noticed yeah, that it is, it's really interesting, isn't it? Like, well, I know you know from Loving What Is that, Katie's story is so amazing about her. There's her daughter going off and drinking all the
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
she's in her head. And that's what I would say was going on with my young adult,
Yeah.
like just, oh my God, just being afraid about their life. It is a subcategory, and it's a very interesting because eating is just so like um it's not off that you'd have, eating as with all the information out there, like sort of good nutrition helps your brain and helps your nervous system and helps your, right? And so you kind of see that. And so then you think, oh my God, well, they better be eating this certain way or or something. And because we just want our our kids to have the best life. Of course we do. But it is when it gets obsessive and they have to, I don't want them to suffer, and it's my fault that they're doing this. Oh, painful.
Well, and I just totally see that she has been my teacher. I did the work this morning on on something. It wasn't actually well, I'm often not doing it on food, but I've committed in this last 6 months to doing a lot more of the work on her
Oh,
because she's like in many ways my biggest remaining stressor.
yeah.
And it's really, really sweet. Like she is my teacher on steroids. I can see that. And I can definitely see that when I don't have an addiction to her needing to show up differently for me
Yeah.
to be happy, that's my addiction. And it's
Yes.
just as big as any other one. It just doesn't manifest necessarily physically, which eating doesn't always manifest physically either if
Yes.
your weight stays the same, right?
That's true. Right, right.
Yeah.
It can be
Anyways,
interesting. You've probably done it, but it's like just keep noticing the meaning. There she
yeah.
is doing that. What does it mean?
Yeah.
And be catastrophic. What's the worst that could happen here? What am
Right.
I thinking it means um, yeah, I mean, it can get very extreme. You realize what's in the mind, she'll get cancer. Nobody will be attracted to her. Da, 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 da. I don't,
And even if that's the case, though, like, yeah, why do I make that to be
yes,
so
yes,
awful? Right?
yes, yes,
It, Grace, I want to say too, because I'm finding that tears are coming to my eyes, that part of what I see happened through the 5 years of inquiry with you is it really helped me with the emotional play. So I'm a parenting educator and I teach parents of how our kids need emotional play in order to process emotions. But most adults don't have the emotional play that we need to navigate what's going on for our kids, right?
yes,
And for me, it's been phenomenal. Whereas before that, I did the equivalent of a cognitive behavioral therapy thing, and I did it by myself without a partner, and having a partner there
yes.
taps into my emotions in such a powerful way. And slowly over those 5 years, I went from doing the work rarely to very, very commonly. So, like very, very commonly.
Yeah.
So phenomenal. And I just wanted to say that again too, that what you're doing is so, so wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. What you're doing is wonderful. Yeah, it's brilliant to take parents and let them learn the work, and like let out because boy, mothers and fathers feel so terrible about identifying these thoughts about their kids that are they look whatever they're thinking, oh my God, I
Yeah.
can't say that about my kid. Oh, what kind of a person am I? But just like it's okay,
Yeah.
have it be there, and then investigate, examine, be there. That's
Yeah.
just amazing at what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And again, your leadership, even with sharing your situation with your
Mm,
children, has also been helpful for me because I can also get the fraud thing showing up, saying, well, who's going to listen to me if my kids aren't perfect? Well, no one's kids are
yes,
actually perfect, whether they seem
right.
like it or not. But yeah, so thank you.
Right. Yeah, good.
I'm gushing. I can't help it, which is
It's
why
so
I'm still
sweet.
here. But I'm sure we all need to go.
I love it. I'm so glad you're here today. It's so sweet.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, awesome. All right, everybody. Well, I think that's it. So just know I'm at Grace at Work with Grace if you have any questions, and I'll send out, you'll probably see something tomorrow in your inbox. And I'll be sure to send the recording to everybody so all of you who have just listened, some people have listened that weren't here. It's great. You're welcome too.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. All right. Lots of love, my friends. Bye.